Hello everyone, happy Friday. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Now, a while ago my social media feeds were all filled with aesthetic journaling and D&D record keeping tips. And because I am easily influenced into making sudden art decisions, I took a trip to the craft store where the cashier lady saw everything I brought to the checkout lane and proceeded to absolutely put me on blast by saying, "So you got a lot of unfinished projects at home, huh?" Yes, Joanne's checkout lady. Yes, I do, including this new one that I'm adding to the list because it's not a finished project yet, and it won't be for a long time because, well, you probably saw the title of this video. You can see why. I decided to start making D&D journals for my characters. Of course, I would love to make something for all of the characters that I've ever had, but I'm going to limit myself so much by choosing only the characters in the active or most active campaigns that I'm in. That way the journals fill up relatively quickly and also have a sooner end in sight, I guess. Of course, this means we are bringing back my girl, Inkashti. Now, Inkashti is a well-traveled character that is the cleric in an oversized squadron that is currently residing in a desert city. And honestly, whether or not her background would have her traveling a lot, I just wanted to weather the paper a little bit. So I'm taking some watercolors and adding some stains to the paper. I did consider dipping the whole book in tea or coffee, but I was kind of impatient about getting started and I didn't want to wait for the book to dry before I started drawing. And besides, I kind of like individually weathering each page. This is definitely not because I always just like to make things harder for myself or anything like that. So while I'm sketching out a little thumbnail for the first page of the book, let me talk about how I waffled a lot on whether or not I should make this a practical D&D journal like Ginny D made for her character, or if I should just do this purely for the vibes. And I am a huge fan of having a beautiful physical character sheet, and I've seen some absolutely gorgeous stat blocks that people have drawn for their own characters and character journals, and I was very close to doing that myself. Honestly, still might do something like that. I purposefully left the first 2 pages in the book blank just in case I wanted to do something special. But for the time being, I decided that I was going to go with aesthetics and drama over function because I live for impracticality that brings me joy, because if I didn't, I would not be into cosplay or half of the things that I'm into. So the goal here is to actually make these entries as if they are journal entries. So in my headcanon, I guess, I imagine that soldiers in this army get issued field journals as an optional way to keep logs or information about the places they go and the people that they connect with. Or alternatively, maybe just the manufactured soldiers, who, like Inkashti, have these journals to keep track of their health or how their powers are manifesting or whatever else for scientific purposes. Inkashti probably has years worth of data stocked up in journals that are unfortunately in research storage because she is a cleric and not the damage and destruction oriented soldier that they were hoping to have made of her, so her journals are not considered high priority. That also means that Inkashti is pretty used to this shindig, and she also uses her journal more like a regular field log, not really writing down her emotions or how she feels or anything. She mostly just takes her own personal notes and draws pictures of the places that she visits. As for the little entry number that I'm writing at the top of each page, I thought it would be a fun sort of fourth wall break, I guess, to have this arbitrary seeming serial coding system for each entry. Even though in game it's like consecutive days or even half days, in real life obviously we're playing once a week if we can all manage to line up our schedules. So the serial numbers are just the dates without any spaces or breaks to designate day, month, year. I guess that's not that arbitrary of a numbering system, but if we treat this journal as an in-game item, those numbers make no sense. Also, you saw those stamps scattered out on the table. I just want you to know I did in fact put them all back in alphabetical order when I was done stamping them. Do not worry. So now on to what has been both one of the most fun but also one of the most challenging parts of this project. On a lot of these pages, I plan to do a drawing of a location that they've been in-game, at least as I imagine it, but also not so much as I imagine it because I am very bad at architectural drawings, especially from memory. My specialty is absolutely character design, and that's it. So you can burn me at the stake if you'd like, but at least I'm admitting it here. None of the drawings that I did in this journal are from my imagination. They're mostly, if not completely, from reference. I was not about to destroy and struggle through a perfectly good journal concept just to have everything be 100% from my brain. I struggle a lot with perspective drawings, and I just really wanted this journal to turn out nice. So I guess consider this journal my venture into perspective in architectural drawings and studies like that. At the end of the day, clearly I'm not trying to pretend that these drawings aren't from reference, and I'm not gonna sell this journal or anything like that. It's literally just for me and my brain cells. So I think that's fine, right? That's enough justification. I don't have to be awake at night thinking about this, right? Anyways, so page 1 is basically session 1. It's all about entering the city, taking some notes on some NPCs of interest, getting settled into the new environment. So I added a little coffee ring stain because I imagine Inkashi's working on the journal either super early in the morning or very late at night. And I also added a little sticker that kind of looks like a travel ticket, even though I'm not sure that they took any automotive transportation to this place. But anyways, it's their first day in town. The page needed a little bit of color. I thought it looked neat. Page 2 is where we start adding more texture, and definitely not because my cool stickers and papers that I ordered finally came in the mail or anything like that. Day 2 was all about intel gathering. We split the party that day and we did a lot of exploring of the city, so I added a piece of paper that had a little map on it, and honestly now that I'm looking at it, I genuinely think it's a map of the UK and I didn't notice when putting it in. We can fix this. Wow, it is so uncanny that our D&D party's location looks so much like Great Britain. What a coincidence. Anyways, I also added this loose piece of paper that I thought looked like a folded discarded napkin or paper from elsewhere with a couple of notes on it. You see, after breakfast, our party finds out that our Warforged escorted a person who had been drinking in the tavern the night before to a room to ask him some questions, which, if you didn't catch that, our construct held a poor hungover guy hostage and interrogated him. Yeah, half planned out strategies followed by low rolls really make for a very fun and interesting start to the game. But we did get some useful information from the poor guy, and I imagined that Inkashti was holding like a napkin or something from breakfast, and she just quickly wrote whatever notes she could and stuck them into her journal to reference later. There is one last piece of important information stuck into this particular page. There is a ticket stub, which is totally not canon at all. Again, another ticket that's not canon. But on this day, my group was invited to a gala, which if you watch my very first drawing D&D parties video, you might remember me referencing. Haskell and Inkashti managed to lie their way into the good graces of the hostess of the gala, pretending that they were associates of her recently deceased lover. And I say recently deceased like it was a week ago, but literally we were having this conversation with his body still in the room with us. Anyways, we ended up getting a very hefty check with the condition that we would be hiring guards to watch over the gala. After all, assassins are clearly everywhere. Which transitions us nicely into the next journal page, which was a day about shopping, and I literally had only 2 ideas for this page. Number 1 is, of course, an architectural drawing. Without getting too lost in the weeds of all the little threads we were investigating at the time, this is the residence of one of the NPCs of interest that I talked about at the start of the campaign. So the way that the buildings are organized in this city is really cool. The largest, most important establishments are at the center of the city, and the buildings sort of radiate out from there. However, the same is said of individual shopping centers. So in the center of this little section, you'll have a large house owned by a wealthy merchant or businessman, and radiating out from that building will be shops that correspond to the owner, the closer ones being nicer shops and the farther ones being maybe not as nice shops. Even in the section of the city that houses more of the traveling merchants, there are several larger, more permanent structures that the tents and open air shops center around. And I just think that's a super neat detail for our DM to have thought of. I don't know, it just seemed neat. Back to the second idea I had for this page, literally a piece of fabric. After that whole conversation with the lady of the house, Inkashi is now seen as the self-described head of this imaginary company that she was an associate of, and she decides that she actually needs to dress the part. She ends up spending a good chunk of the gold that they got from the madame on a very extravagant dress, which I depicted in a previous video as having red and gold fabric, and lo and behold, I happen to have a scrap of beautiful red and gold fabric from my Jester Lavore cosplay that is the perfect tactile insert for this page. Let's move on to what is probably my favorite entry that I've worked on so far, and really the only page that I had an idea for when I started making this journal, the observatory. So Inkashi really wants to dig up sorcerer abilities because, again, the whole premise of her character is that she's supposed to have been a useful weapon built for the army, and as a full cleric as of that moment, she's only kind of doing that. But she takes the Warforged Artificer and the Wizard Centaur with her to the observatory, which is a huge research and information center with constructs that retrieve books for you. The place is a tower with levels upon levels of bookshelves, and none of these books are organized in any coherent way. The general sentiment about the place is you find the books you need and then stash them all in a corner in the hopes that no other researcher also finds it and tries to hide it from you. Thank goodness for the gnome that keeps the tower in check, and now this is just speculation. I'm not fully sure how the tower works, but I'm 97% sure that the gnome that keeps the tower just spends his whole day walking up and down the tower, looking at all the bookshelves, looking where all the books have been stashed, and he just knows where to tell the constructs to look to get the books for people who ask for them. Anyways, I love libraries, if you can't tell, so I absolutely had to do this page justice, which is why I also bought an actual fountain pen and an inkwell for this. I don't know, for the authenticity, I guess. I don't really think it made a huge difference from the ballpoint pens, if you would like to know, but I felt very cool, at least. So anyways, I had a very specific image in mind for the library, and I spent so long hunting for just the right reference. I finally came across Maitha VKE on ArtStation. She had some art titled as Celestial Library Arius Rune, and if you look at the original version and the rest of her work, it is so incredible. It's stuff that I can only dream of drawing. I am so in love with her work. You can also tell from this journal page that my variety of stickers and tapes and papers is increasing because my collection expands whenever I see something cool. I found a shop called Naid, I think, spelled Knaid. They sell a bunch of journaling stickers and papers and all sorts of stuff, and they had this collection of transparent stickers that had pressed flowers and wax seals, and I could not resist. These made excellent little additions to the page, and even though I think Inkashi's probably not necessarily a pressed flower girly, I do think she has a habit of picking up spell components wherever she goes, even if she doesn't really need it. And now for the last but not least entry, Inkashi spends most of this session studying the sorcery and local etiquette books that she got. I think this might have been a split the party day, but I can't honestly say that I remember because yeah, even if this is the last page that I'm including in this video, we have actually had quite a number of sessions since. I just didn't have enough time to make a page for every single entry that I have in my notes just yet. But if you all like this, I might make the journals a series and give little tidbits into Inkashi's growth. Maybe not as in-depth as this first video, but hey, only time will tell. But yeah, one of the paper kits I got had a bunch of diagrams of planets and the phases of the moon, and I thought that's very sorcery coded. So I wanted to make a whole page that was just a collage of diagrams that Inkashi might have seen in the books that she was reading. So this bit was like a lot of trial and error because my experiences with collages in general is pretty much zero, at least until I started making this journal, I guess. And I am also an anxious sticker hoarder, so this was very stressful. But once I got everything all placed down in a way that I like, I took some pictures of it and then I set it all to the side because I had an idea. You know how I asked y'all if I could keep doing slightly spooky related content? Well, I was met with an overwhelmingly positive response for yes. Keep spookying. And here I am, spooky as ever. Maybe mildly subdued spooky vibes, but still. So, Inkashti begins delving into shadow sorcery, and she learns that in general, the deity in charge of the realm of shadows is relatively new, and his rise to power is possibly related to the decline of the empire that created her. So, underneath all the nice little diagrams of a prim and proper organized sorcery student are the scrawlings of someone deeply invested to an almost unhealthy point, because I do think Inkashti is kind of unhealthily obsessed with becoming useful at any cost, but she's also quite prideful and she wants to hide how low she will stoop to get it. So underneath the nice diagrams, I included some scrawled looking diagrams, an ingredients and components list for the shadow sorcery spells that she picks up. I even wrote some random letters in Abyssal and just writing without looking at the page, so you know, it looks worse, which is good because I don't want it to look legible at all, and also doesn't spell anything. Don't try to translate it if you can even translate it. Of course, I had to draw some eyes because eyes are extremely important in Inkashti's design motifs. And then we covered that all up because we like to pretend that things are fine and nothing is wrong and Inkashti is fully sound and capable. We have this other page totally dedicated to a nice and neat moon phase chart, a much cleaner list of spell components, and a drawing of the red slod that they encountered and fought, because Inkashti is useful and can totally distinguish between good and evil and definitely knows at what point too much is too much. But on the note of everything being just fine, I think we can go to the reveal. Oh, but wait, there's more. So I saw someone else use invisible ink in their journal on Pinterest and I just thought it was the coolest thing. But while some of the stuff I drew showed up super well, like highlighting the ominous words on the washi tape, a lot of the materials did not actually love the marker that I got. Plus it bled a little bit and didn't show up super nicely when applied directly to the paper. But the concept is still really cool and I'm not quite ready to give up on it. I just wanted a different way to show Inkashti's progress into shadow sorcery, especially if she might not be fully honest about her experiments with the new magic in the journal that she knows is going to be more or less public information when she returns to the Empire. But I am super excited to continue working on this journal with all the many more more entries that I have. But that being said, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed this kind of video. I'd love to hear any ideas, suggestions, or advice, especially regarding the blacklight marker strategy, because I really want that to work out. I think maybe using it on a fewer number of textures will probably do some good as far as legibility, but whatever, it's all trial and error, and someday I'll get better at this journal-y thing. Maybe. But who knows? Not me.